The teacher's voice sliced through the classroom like a blade. "Look at her," she snapped, holding up a notebook in the air. "This is what a liar looks like." A wave of laughter rolled across the room. The poor girl stood frozen at the front, her hands clenched so tight her fingers turned white. Her throat closed, as if the air itself had become too heavy to swallow. The teacher shook the notebook again, making the pages flutter. "Blank," she announced. "Completely blank." The poor girl's eyes darted across the class, desperate for one friendly face. All she found were smirks, widened eyes, and whispers. The popular girl leaned toward her friends and muttered something, and they laughed even harder. The teacher took a step closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound more cruel. "And of course," she said, "when someone has no real parent watching them, they think they can get away with anything." The room went quiet for half a second, like everyone felt the sting of that sentence. Then the murmuring returned, uglier. "Her mom left. That's why she's like this. She's always begging for attention." The poor girl tried to speak, but her voice came out small. "It wasn't blank. I swear I did it." The teacher's eyes narrowed. "Oh, you swear?" She turned to the class. "Do we believe her?" A few students shrugged. Someone laughed. The teacher raised her hand and pointed at the door. "Get out," she said sharply. "Go sit in the hallway until you learn how to tell the truth." The poor girl's face burned so badly it felt like her skin might crack. She took one step, then another, as the entire class watched her walk toward the door. Right before she left, she glanced back, searching one last time for mercy. That's when she saw it. The popular girl's desk. A corner of paper peeking out from under her pencil case, folded in a way that looked familiar. The poor girl's stomach dropped because she recognized her own handwriting, and she realized in that instant that this wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. She walked into the hallway, her knees shaking, and the door clicked shut behind her. Inside the classroom, the teacher continued the lesson like nothing happened. Outside, the poor girl slid down the wall slowly, hugging her backpack to her chest. She didn't cry loudly. She cried silently, the way you cry when you've learned no one is coming to save you. And that was the moment she made a decision. If they wanted to make her the villain, then she would force the truth to come out. No matter who it embarrassed, no matter who it destroyed.
Stories like hers are quiet, but they stay with you. If you want to hear more like it, stay with us and subscribe.
2 weeks earlier, the poor girl had arrived at school earlier than usual. The halls were still quiet, lockers closed, lights half on. She liked coming early. It was the only time school felt peaceful. She sat at her desk and pulled out her notebook, carefully smoothing the creased pages. That notebook mattered more to her than anyone knew. It wasn't just homework. It was proof that she was trying. At home, there was never silence, only complaints, slammed doors, and her older sister's constant reminders. "Don't expect help from me. You're not my responsibility. If mom left, that's on you too." So the poor girl worked alone. That morning, the teacher walked in while she was still writing. She stopped at the doorway and watched the poor girl for a moment, her expression unreadable. "You're early," the teacher said flatly. "Yes, ma'am," the poor girl replied, lowering her head. The teacher nodded once, then walked away without another word. But from that day on, something changed. Every time the poor girl raised her hand, the teacher looked away. Every time she answered correctly, the teacher corrected her tone, not her answer. Every mistake, no matter how small, was pointed out loudly. The popular girl noticed. She always did. She watched how the teacher sighed whenever the poor girl spoke. She noticed how laughter followed the poor girl like a shadow, and she smiled. One afternoon, the teacher announced a major assignment. "This project will count heavily toward your final grade," she said. "No excuses." The poor girl's heart raced. That night, she worked until her fingers ached. When the lights went out, she kept going by the glow of a candle. When the candle burned low, she rewrote sections from memory to make them cleaner. At school, the popular girl leaned over her desk the next day. "You're really trying, huh?" she said sweetly. The poor girl nodded, unsure. "You know," the popular girl continued, lowering her voice, "teachers hate when poor kids suddenly act smart. It makes them suspicious." The poor girl swallowed. "I'm not acting, I just want to do well." The popular girl smiled wider. That was when she knew exactly what to do. Later that day, during group work, the popular girl made sure to sit close, too close. She watched the poor girl open her notebook. She saw the blue ink. She memorized the handwriting. And when the bell rang, she stayed behind for just a moment longer than everyone else. Long enough. Because by the time the poor girl realized what was coming, the plan was already in motion, and the teacher, without knowing it, was about to make it happen.
There are many stories like hers, often left unheard. Subscribing means you won't miss the next one. That evening, the poor girl arrived home later than usual. Her backpack felt heavier than it should have, even though there was nothing new inside it. Every step up the stairs felt like climbing something invisible but steep. The door was already open. Her older sister was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, her expression sharp before a single word was spoken. "The school called," she said, without looking up. The poor girl froze. "They said you've been causing problems again." "I didn't," the poor girl said quietly. "I swear I didn't." Her sister finally looked at her. "You always swear. That didn't stop Mom from leaving, did it?" The words landed hard. The poor girl retreated to her small room and shut the door gently, like even noise might make things worse. She sat on the edge of her bed and opened her notebook again. Blue ink, neat lines, every answer complete. She checked it once, then again, then again. The next day at school, the pressure grew. The teacher returned graded papers with sharp comments written in red. Careless, unbelievable, disappointing. When the poor girl approached the desk after class, holding her notebook close, the teacher didn't let her speak. "If you're going to lie," the teacher said, loud enough for nearby students to hear, "at least do it convincingly." The popular girl watched from across the room, her expression perfectly neutral. At lunch, the poor girl sat alone. She heard whispers float past her table like smoke. Teachers watching her. She's going to get caught. People like her always do. That afternoon, the teacher announced a surprise assignment check for the following morning. "No excuses," she said. "I expect honesty." The poor girl's chest tightened. That night, the power went out again. She lit a candle and kept working. Her hand cramped, her eyes burned. Still, she didn't stop. Because if she failed this, there would be nothing left to defend herself with. The next morning, she arrived early. She placed her notebook carefully inside her desk. She didn't notice the popular girl watching from across the room, didn't notice how her lingered near that desk, didn't notice the way her pencil case was set down, just close enough to hide something underneath. By the time the bell rang, the trap was already set, and the poor girl, trying so hard to do everything right, walked straight into it. Some stories deserve to be followed until the very end. If you're here for that, subscribing keeps you close. The bell rang, sharp and final. Students rushed into their seats, laughter echoing through the room. The poor girl sat down slowly, her heart beating faster than usual. She reached for her notebook. It was lighter. The teacher entered moments later, already irritated. "Notebooks on your desks," she ordered. "No talking." The poor girl opened hers, then felt the air leave her lungs. Blank pages. Her hands began to tremble. That wasn't possible. She had checked it, more than once. She flipped through the pages quickly, panic rising with each turn. Nothing. Across the room, the popular girl avoided her eyes. The teacher started walking down the aisles, collecting notebooks. When she reached the poor girl's desk, she stopped. "Well?" she asked. The poor girl tried to speak, but no sound came out. I think there's been a mistake," she finally said. "My work was there." The teacher flipped through the notebook loudly, making sure everyone could hear the empty pages. "This is exactly what I expected," she said. She lifted the notebook into the air. "Class, pay attention." The room went silent. This student claimed she worked all night, and yet here we are. The popular girl raised her hand slowly. "I tried to help her, but she didn't want help." Gasps spread through the room. The teacher nodded, as if that settled everything. "Lies on top of lies," she said. That was when the poor girl looked down. On the floor, near the popular girl's desk, a folded paper lay half hidden under a chair leg. Blue ink. Her handwriting. Her chest tightened. Before she could say anything, the teacher slammed the notebook onto the desk. "Enough," she snapped. "You've wasted enough of our time." She pointed to the door. "You will leave this classroom immediately." The poor girl stood up, her legs weak, every eye following her as she walked toward the door. The laughter started again, this time louder. The moment replayed exactly as it had at the beginning, except now, the audience knew the truth, and so did the poor girl. She stepped into the hallway as the door closed behind her, and inside the classroom, the popular girl finally smiled. The hallway was cold and empty. The poor girl sat on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest, staring at the wall across from her. The voices from inside the classroom sounded distant now, muffled, like they belonged to another world. She replayed the moment over and over in her head. The blank pages, the laughter, the folded paper near the popular girl's desk. It didn't make sense. She hadn't imagined it. After a while, footsteps approached. The school counselor stopped a few feet away and crouched down slowly. "They sent you out?" she asked gently. The poor girl nodded. "I did the work," she said, her voice barely audible. "I know I did." The counselor didn't interrupt. She just listened. "What color pen do you use?" she asked after a moment. The poor girl blinked, confused. "Blue, always blue." The counselor's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in thought. Inside the classroom, the teacher continued the lesson, flipping through the notebook again, frowning. Something bothered her. The pages weren't torn. There were no ink smudges.
they were too clean. During the next period, the counselor returned to the classroom with the principal. They didn't say much, they just asked to see the notebook again. The popular girl shifted in her seat. As the counselor flipped through the pages, she noticed faint indentations on the paper, pressure marks. Writing had been there. The counselor ran her fingers lightly across the page. "This wasn't forgotten," she said quietly. "It was removed." The teacher stiffened. The popular girl's smile faded. Outside, unaware of what was happening, the poor girl sat alone, staring at her hands. For the first time since that morning, a small thought formed in her mind. Maybe the truth hadn't disappeared. Maybe it was just hiding. The next morning, the poor girl was called to the principal's office. She walked down the hallway slowly, her shoulders tense, already expecting the worst. Inside, the counselor sat beside the principal. On the desk, her notebook lay open. The teacher stood near the window, arms crossed, unusually quiet. "Sit down," the principal said calmly. The poor girl obeyed. "We need you to answer one question honestly," he continued. "Did you write the assignment?" "Yes," she said immediately. "I did every page." The counselor slid the notebook closer. "These marks," she said, pointing to the faint impressions, "they match your handwriting pressure." The poor girl's eyes widened. "We also reviewed the classroom cameras," the principal added. The teacher shifted her weight. On the screen, the footage played. Students entering, bags opening, desks filling. Then, the popular girl. She paused at one desk longer than the others. Her hand moved quickly. The room went still. The poor girl covered her mouth. The teacher turned pale. "That can't be," she whispered. The principal stopped the video. "We'll need to speak to the student," he said firmly. Minutes later, the popular girl sat in the chair across from them. She crossed her arms, trying to look confident, but her leg shook. "I was just helping," she said quickly. "She asked me to look at it." The counselor leaned forward. "Why was the paper found near your desk?" she asked. The popular girl hesitated. Silence stretched. Her eyes flicked toward the teacher. That was when everyone understood. This wasn't just about one lie. It was about who had been believed without question. The principal stood. "We're going back to the classroom," he said. "This needs to be addressed where it happened." The poor girl's heart pounded. For the first time, she wasn't being sent away. She was being brought back. The classroom went quiet as the door opened. Students looked up, confused, when they saw the principal walk in, followed by the counselor. And then the poor girl. She stepped inside slowly. The popular girl's face drained of color. The teacher straightened, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everyone," the principal said calmly, "we're going to pause the lesson." He nodded to the counselor, who walked to the front of the room and placed the notebook on the desk. "Yesterday," she said, "a student was publicly accused of lying." No one laughed now. The counselor turned on the screen. The video played. Clear, silent, unforgiving. The popular girl was seen stopping at the poor girl's desk. Her hand slipped into the notebook. A page was removed. Gasps filled the room. Someone whispered, "She took it." The popular girl stood up suddenly. "I didn't mean to," she started. The principal raised his hand. "That's enough." He turned to the teacher. "You humiliated a student without proof," he said, "and you encouraged others to do the same." The teacher opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she had nothing to say. The principal faced the class. Being poor is not a crime, and silence is not guilt. No one looked at the poor girl. They couldn't. The popular girl was escorted out of the room. The teacher lowered her eyes. The bell rang. Students left quietly, avoiding each other's gaze. The poor girl remained seated for a moment, holding her notebook. Then she stood. As she walked out, no one laughed. At home that night, her older sister said nothing, and for the first time, the poor girl didn't need her to, because the truth had spoken, and everyone had heard it.